Welcome top news today.
Where do we go to understand the relationship between President Donald Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner? Virtually no research has been conducted specifically on fathers-in-law and the relationships with the sons and daughters-in-law. Yet fathers-in-law, who also fulfill the role of father and often grandfather, have an enormous influence on intergenerational family interactions. As lifespans increase, information about the role of the father-in-law with his children's and grandchildren's generations becomes increasingly important to gather. Why have fathers-in-law been ignored as a topic of research on family life as well as been avoided as the topic of in-law jokes? It may be they have been understudied because, until fairly recently, fathers have been overlooked. Reasons for fathers being under-researched have included the being less available to be interviewed because of the greater participation in the workforce, the matricentric nature of U.S. society in relation to parenting and the secondary role that men are often fulfilling, and the perception that fathers may be less in need of services due to mothers being considered the more involved parent. The attention to fathers could open the door to a consideration of research on fathers-in-law. Mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law have received attention. The work of Mary Morcerevich at the University of Denver and the work of Christine Rittenor at West Virginia University are particularly helpful in gaining an understanding of women's in-law relationships. In-law relationships function in quite complex ways and require a family system to open itself up to a new addition, their adult child's spouse, who usually the child and not the parents have selected. Yet here he or she is and shall remain, often helping to conceive and parent the next generation. The in-law relationship is often mediated through the adult child of the parent-in-law, as we are finding in ongoing research we are conducting. But can these relationships be any more complex than the father-in-law and in-law relationships of presidents? While there are many examples over the past 50 years of daughters who were married while their father was in office, e.g., Lyndon Johnson through George Bush, with the exception of Gerald Ford, all had daughters who were married while they were in office, we have no predecessor relationships where a son-in-law is playing as public a role as we see today with President Trump and Jared Kushner. Unfortunately, the social science literature is deficient in helping provide a lens for understanding two men's relationship when they are in-laws. Is the relationship mediated through Ivanka, as other research might suggest it would be? Should the research on male bonding be used to understand how men get along in the family? Should father-son research be probed, or is that a wholly other relationship than what is created by marriage? Should women's in-law relationship be used to do mothers and daughters fulfill their roles fundamentally differently in the family than the way men fulfill theirs? A preliminary qualitative analysis of interviews with 35 fathers-in-law that Michael Woolley and I undertook C. Smith College Studies in Social Work suggests a few commonalities among fathers-in-law who report a close relationship with the son-in-law. These fathers-in-law are likely to have had children by that son-in-law, have good relationships with other children-in-law, be married and be young enough to not need caretaking from the younger generation. These fathers-in-law also tend to treat the son-in-law like a son or a friend. Further, the fathers-in-law looked favorably on the son-in-law's treatment of their daughter and believe that the son-in-law and daughter make a good team. We are undertaking other research that looks at fathers-in-law's relationships with a gay son-in-law. We also heard complimentary things from fathers-in-law when the son-in-law was sharing in housework and child care, two areas that traditionally have been left to women. For the outside, we did not interview President Trump. Similarities abound between our sample of mostly mid-Atlantic-based fathers-in-law and the president's relationship with Mr. Kushner, but what may be most interesting would be to study the impact the relationship will have on future fathers-in-law and sons-in-law, both those in and outside the White House. Americans often turn to the leaders to serve as role models.